All right, back with Black and Blue Jiu-Jitsu Podcast. This is episode 5, Rolling Through Barriers, Women in Jiu-Jitsu. And today we have a special guest, Danielle. And also, as always, we have Emmett here, my co-host, here to keep both of us in line because Danielle has a tendency to go on rants as well, as I've learned. So, introduce yourself.
My name is Danielle. I'm a blue belt here at Dark Horse Martial Arts under Travis. I've been training here since maybe July. I haven't always trained here, but this is my new home. I spend a lot of my time here, and I also co-coach the women's jiu-jitsu classes here at Dark Horse.
Yeah, she's one of the dynamic duo that runs our women's only and teaches women how to choke everyone out and be mean. It's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And then, we got Emmett again.
Here I am. Yeah.
And he's looking a little bit more healthy.
Yeah. I'm going to try not to cough through this entire episode today. So, yeah.
It's winning all around.
I know. It only took me like a month and a half to get over. It was like the entire first few episodes of the podcast. I was essentially dying. So,
dude, that's been like everyone's been going through something. Like Danielle had it there for a bit.
I had it twice.
Yeah. And like I think you had it for probably the longest of anyone.
Man. That's why my jiu-jitsu hasn't been at top level, is because I was kind of sick. So.
Totally.
It's always a sickness.
It's always that.
You can't take steroids when you're sick, right?
Right.
That's what it is.
Actually, they did give me steroids, just not the right kind. So, yeah.
Emmett's coming back super ripped.
Just shredded. Yeah. So I guess we can kick it off, get right into the topic today, if you guys are ready.
Absolutely.
Maybe actually, Danielle, why don't you tell us a little bit about how you got into jiu-jitsu and what the beginning of your journey was like? And yeah. So anytime someone asks me about my jiu-jitsu journey, I kind of started off by saying it's a bit of a weird story and a weird timeline. When I was 15 or so, I started wrestling in high school and I really enjoyed it. I was always a swimmer. I swam competitively for a number of years. I was a lifeguard. I trained lifeguards. It was like my super passion. But once I started wrestling, everything changed. I loved to fight. I loved to scrap. I was pretty decent. In my senior year of high school, I was the regional champion of the area where I grew up. And it was a lot of fun. I went to college and I didn't wrestle. And I was like this massive mess. I started becoming dysregulated. I had like no good hobbies anymore. So after my first year of college, I walked straight into a jiu-jitsu gym. I was 19. I didn't know anyone. I was the only woman in the place that day. So
that seems to be the case with a lot of gyms.
Yep, it is. And I wasn't the only woman who trained at that gym. There were, I think, 4 or 5 that trained pretty regularly. They were all in their 30s or 40s. They were all moms, so they were very inconsistent, not through any fault of their own, but, they had kids to take care of. They had families. Some of them worked shift work, and I didn't always get to train with women for that reason. But I think for the first few weeks, at least, I didn't see another woman in the gym.
And where was this?
This was in Toronto. Where I grew up, at Rev MMA. So really great place to start, and I learned a lot there. But yeah, I was the only woman for a long time. We had some really, really great blue and purple belt women in the gym that I got mentorship from. One of them was teaching our women's only class there, and she was awesome. And, they only got a few weeks into it before the pandemic hit and everyone kind of stopped training. But
man, that's when we had a good women's presence, and then the pandemic, and coming out of the pandemic, most of the women, it was women were pregnant by then. There's going to be a lot of pandemic babies kind of thing. A lot of them got pregnant or moved away or had to move back home because it got too expensive here or lost their jobs. So our women's program just went down.
And I'm building it back up.
100%. Yeah. And it's good because I keep hearing great stories about how not only yourself, but also Avon, you guys have this great chemistry. You guys have went to multiple absolutes against one another, having fun all the time. And yeah, they say your teaching is just incredible. You have I hear it firsthand that it feels like you really do have a love for teaching and building that community. So that's
it's been like cool. 2 minutes. You're making me blush already, Travis.
And check mark, we've mentioned Avon again today.
Oh, yeah.
So good.
She has to get name dropped every episode.
Apparently, we gotta. I've already talked to her. She'll be on one of the podcasts here in the future.
She does exist. She's not like Mr. Snuffleupagus. She really does exist.
She could be. Who knows? Maybe she's just like a part of our conjoined mental fictional thing.
I promise you, she's not. I spend a lot of time with her.
Maybe even more so for you, like Winnie the Pooh kind of thing. Let's go.
And so, getting into some of the topics that we have here, what are some of the challenges that you think, or that you have perceived throughout your journey, that you think like maybe men don't face, or challenges that are unique to women? What stands out in your mind?
One of the main things, and I saw someone post about this the other day, I can't remember who it was, but training with a menstrual cycle is like one of the craziest things in jiu-jitsu. Like, you kind of have to train along with your cycle. Your energy levels go up and down throughout the month. There's weeks where you just, you can't really exist like a human. You kind of feel like a zombie. And then there's weeks where your energy levels are crazy. And, that's something that guys don't experience. They exist on a different hormone cycle than women. Yeah. So the ways that you train as a woman have to be different. You have to listen to your body a lot more in that sense.
What's so interesting about that is, we went back and forth about the topics for today and like some questions to ask. I can't speak for Travis, but that never crossed my mind.
See, there you go. You didn't even think about it.
That's it. That's exactly the type of thing that like, it requires something from the source to.
It's definitely a unique thing. I haven't had to deal with it, but I've had to deal with people that have to deal with it. Yeah. And like irrational crying, where they're like, I'm not like wanting to cry. It's just
it happens.
Hormones are doing things.
Sometimes
and they just cry, and I'm just like, that's fair. Like you don't have to be embarrassed by it or anything like that. Cry, do whatever you want on the mats, and then.
But that was me.
Yeah, I know. I was like, it was the steroids. But another thing that I found, like, I was doing a knee on belly class, and then I got one of the female members came up. She's like, "Hey, I can't have anyone kneeling down there." I'm like, my brain didn't work, and I was like, "Oh, what's up? Like bellyache?" She's like, "No, I have cramps." I was like, "Oh, that makes a lot of sense." Mm-hmm. And then just had to revise what I was teaching, because it's got to be.
Yeah.
It's horrible. Well, not horrible, but it's just another factor that you guys have to deal with.
Absolutely. And I think that even just like fostering that safe environment, changing the class, or even just knowing as a woman that the instructor will be sympathetic and change or alter what's being taught in order to help them in their body that day will help them show up to training. Because if you don't foster that environment, they're not going to show up for a few days every month.
Up to like a full week, maybe a week and a half. Like, it can be crazy. And yeah, I'm not like that. I'll be like, okay, well then today we're just going to do arm bars from side or something like that. Like you have to be able to change it up. Absolutely. I think, in my opinion.
Yep.
But
you have to be adaptable.
Yeah. And I think that's with all things. And that's what I feel like a good jiu-jitsu club can do or should do to foster a good female community. But, yeah.
So as a rolling partner or another member of the gym who isn't the coach, anything that maybe men can look out for to be a bit more aware, or a bit more receptive, or good gym buddies?
I think the biggest thing, and this is true for everyone, not just women, is just kind of being in tune with your partner, seeing how they're reacting to things. If there's anything that's off about them that day, someone might have had a bad day and came into the gym just to let off some steam, and they might not be able to keep up with you in, different ways. And just being able to be in sync with your partner. Yeah. And as you're rolling with someone, kind of just noticing their energy levels, noticing what they're doing. There might be a day where like for me, I get, knee pain, I get shoulder pain, I do jujitsu, I get a lot of pain. And there's times where when I'm rolling, if I haven't fully, disclosed it to my partner, sometimes I forget, it just happens. Or if I'm like very on the mend and, the bum shoulder comes back, I'll sort of like favor the other side, or I'll just stay away from certain positions. Yeah. There's days where when I'm rolling, I'll just kind of stay in bottom side for a while, just because. Just because, like, I don't want to push myself too hard and hurt myself.
I do
again.
that involuntarily. But
I do that too. I was like, no, you're not moving today.
So maybe touchy subject, but like, so what I was thinking about, again, preparing for this episode, like when I go to a yoga class, right? Every once in a while I'll go to a yoga class. It's usually more female, more female than male. And one of the things that I find kind of, I guess I'd say uncomfortable is like, I try to keep my eyes somewhere that is like, I don't want anyone to feel like I'm looking at them, female wise. Right. And then, you go down the path in jiu-jitsu of like, especially when I started, Julie was here and like, she'd say, hey, do you want to roll? And I'd be like, I really don't. Because I felt uncomfortable, like almost like imposing myself into a situation which could potentially make a woman feel uncomfortable. Thoughts on that kind of dynamic?
I think that when a woman is new, especially if she doesn't have a lot of experience rolling, something that you can do is maybe just let her come to you. Or if you've developed that sort of relationship where they feel comfortable to roll or drill with you, I think of like Adam teaching morning classes, and he developed a really great relationship with Kate, teaching her all the beginner skills. Like I've been to those classes, and she feels safe rolling with him. Yeah. But, she'll roll with me, she'll roll with him, and maybe Avon on occasion. But, women, especially when they're starting jiu-jitsu, are really picky about their partners. Even for me, when I first started, I was super picky. I'm still really picky. There's certain people that I just won't roll with because I don't know enough about them, and I don't want to put myself in a situation.
I think that's a good thing, though. Yeah. I think that's good for men, like smaller men too, or men that are a little bit more frail in terms of they don't have giant muscles or anything like that. Yeah. But women, and I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, I often I'll talk with them and I'll roll with them because they usually see an instructor as someone that's a little bit safer, and I'll play and I'll laugh and I'll do that kind of thing. And then as an instructor, I feel it as one of my duties to be like, if you want to roll again, and I single out certain people. I'll be like, they're pretty safe. Like 10th point, like 10p Alex. Yeah. Beauty of a human being.
Great roll.
Yeah. And he knows how to like be chill and allow you to work and stuff like that. And you're just like, you could roll with him, they're safe. And then be like, and I'm just honest about it. I'm like, stay away from them. Yeah. Stay away from them. They don't know what they're doing yet. They roll rough. That guy has bad breath because he ate a burrito before class.
It was Indian food.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. But I think that's on a coach as well to be like, hey, Danielle, they're safe, especially if you're brand new or brand new to a club. If you have previous rolling experience and you come into a club, it's like, oh man, what am I doing here? I don't have my safe partners. I think it's on an instructor to be like, hey, that person is a safe roll. Go ahead and like, I'm comfortable. The Filipino Mafia.
I always recommend them.
Dude, those are the 3 best possible people. I like that.
They're great.
Nice ninja. You just moving the mic on you.
Just levels a little high on that mic. So.
Yeah, that's fine. But yeah, the Filipino Mafia, man, those 3, they are the best roles, and they will teach you all the secrets.
Yeah. Like, they will.
They're awesome.
But like, is there And like Travis said, these are all questions like not coming from a place of like we want to know. Is there an added sense of, I guess, like some kind of vulnerability in the female male dynamic?
I think so. Especially because jiu-jitsu, you get into some weird positions. It can get weird, especially I find with younger guys.
Oh, interesting.
I find with the younger guys who are new to the sport and don't really know much about it, you get into like they're in your closed guard and they're like giving you a weird look, and you can tell who is really uncomfortable based on the way that their stance is kind of like showing when you're drilling or when you're rolling. Like if I were to partner with a brand new guy and they didn't know me as someone who's extremely comfortable in jiu-jitsu and all the weird things that come with it. You can see them like tense up. They're very like rigid posture. Their hands are very like light on my belly. They don't want to push down. They don't want to have their hands too high. They don't want to have their hands too low. And I'm just like, hey, it's fine. Like I can handle it. I am probably the person who can handle it just because of like my training history, the way that I feel comfortable. But that being said, I mean, I even think about women who are using jiu-jitsu as an outlet or to feel safe or for self-defense. And those are vulnerable positions.
Oh, yeah.
Having someone like from mount or even in your closed guard, super vulnerable positions, especially for women. Like we think about sexual assault, we think about the positions you're in. You're thinking of how, maybe someone had been held down before. Maybe like you're putting people in positions where you have the potential to re-traumatize them. But there's also the potential to unlock and heal that trauma through empowering people to, get out of those positions, to submit people from those positions, that kind of thing. So
even like maybe like a less severe or like less impactful level than that, like I've been now doing this for a little while, but you accidentally touch the wrong part of someone's body and like I'll be like, oh, sorry, because I think maybe that speaks to good intent, because you're like, the last thing you want to do is make someone feel uncomfortable. But it's rare that there are other situations in life beyond intimate situations where you would ever touch the delicate parts of someone's body. Like it just, those situations don't exist, so they can be shocking when they happen.
They can be, especially when you start jiu-jitsu. I mean, like women who are maybe in the first 6 months of training haven't really rolled, haven't really gone into the part of the sport where things just kind of like positions just happen. Like you end up in certain positions where you're trying to get a submission and hands wander, not on purpose. It's just the way the sport works. And it can be really uncomfortable. Especially if, going back to the trauma piece, you've been in a vulnerable situation before and you don't want to re-traumatize. But I think that, again, showing that intent that that's not what you mean to be doing. Like there are gyms, I've heard stories of women who are like, yeah, no, this guy just wanted to drill this together and he just wanted to like touch my butt, or he just wanted to like grope me, and it's like, that's gross.
There's so many of those
horror stories.
Like we've had people, I've actually kicked out two people. I was like, I heard stories about like how they're training. I was like, okay, you're out. I was like, I'm not gonna foster that kind of culture.
No.
You're like, I had a talk with them and they're like, well, I don't see what's wrong with it. Like, what if I was like, okay, you're gone, you're done. And it was like, and then he's like, well, you're not getting my member. I was like, I will pay your membership back. Money is not a big thing to me. I don't give a shit about that. Go. And I've kicked out 2 people just because it was like beyond that line. And I don't want, and if your gym has one of those people that you allow to like hang around, that is your gym's rep.
And you are not going to have a successful women's program if you have those people in your gym.
No. And that's your gym's rep everywhere now. Especially if you're just like, oh, I don't know what's going on, and you turn a blind eye. It's crazy the amount of things. And like, I guess we could get into it, and that comes with belt prestige. Like a lot of the people that get away with this shit are like black belts. Or like, it's crazy. Like you can, there's some horrible stories, and good thing that they're coming out. And I'm so happy. Like a lot of them are like gaining traction. Like there's one a couple of years ago that gained a crazy amount of traction. It was like, good.
Yeah.
Those people should be kicked out. They should be put in jail. They shouldn't.
Because there's a power dynamic, like in addition to the female dynamic, there's a big power dynamic, and that's messed up.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
You see stories all the time of people saying like, "Yeah, I know, I checked out this jiu-jitsu gym, and the coach is basically using the gym as their personal dating pool," and that's really gross. So. That's not what women want to see when they come into a jiu-jitsu gym. They want a safe space. They want to be able to train, and they want to be able to do so safely and without risk of being run out of the gym because their coach, who has this weird crush on them, doesn't want to treat them properly because of
yeah.
Like I think, sorry, one of the first things, there was I think you're like maybe a month or two into it. And it just so happened that Avon was one of the last ones, and like I forget what the situation was. She was waiting for her dad, and I was like, "Hey Danielle, can you like stay behind or hang out with Avon? I'm gonna go like on the mats or something." Or I think we just hung out in front of all the cameras. I was like, as long as everyone's in the cameras and like, I was like, I just truly do not feel comfortable as a coach to do that.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably the right way to go, but that's not the way a lot of clubs go.
No, it's not.
But that's interesting though, like as a, if you're someone then who is checking out jiu-jitsu for the first time as a female, maybe and fill in the blanks here for me, but like maybe both of you guys, like maybe the first thing you do is have a really frank conversation with your coach and be like, here are some of the things I've heard, here are some of the things I want to avoid, what's your take on this kind of thing?
I think it's hard. I think it's hard for people to bring up anything in front of any kind of coach, any kind of authority figure.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't like, I have an open door policy. I hope that if anything comes up, anyone can come talk to me, but still this guy, but still it's like, come talk to me. And then I still don't get that. Sometimes I get it secondhand, which still I get it at least, and I can deal with it then.
Yeah.
But like we've talked about it before with a couple other members, and I was like, cool, thank you for bringing it up. Dealt with it, I think within like 5 minutes you guys left, and I was like on my phone. I was like, okay, dealing with it right now. And I think that's the best policy. But yeah, to have someone come in and ask, male or female, I don't think that happens.
Oh, interesting.
No.
Ever.
Okay. Interesting. So you got to just kind of suss it out, I guess, and see how it plays out. Yeah.
I would love for females to come in and ask.
Oh,
sweet.
Absolutely.
I will give you all the information, but I just don't see anyone doing that. It's such already an imposing thing to come into.
I guess gyms could like, publish a really clear policy. On contact and, I don't know.
You can. It gets a little like gray area-ish, and like how far do you go? How far do you hold up?
Yeah.
Like
like basically jiu-jitsu is unwanted touching, so
so it's one of those things like, don't like touch a girl's boob. It's like, if I'm like posting off and I'm trying to like escape a triangle, like sometimes a hand will slip, like what we talked about.
Totally.
And like
every time Adam's arm barring me, I'm like, unwanted touching. Unwanted touching.
But that's kind of the thing. Like personally, if like my like male, female, if it like hits some like groin, wherever, I kind of go, I just keep moving through it. I'm just like, and
just
then
don't
like
linger.
You're not
just
like
linger.
this.
It's weird.
Yeah, but like if I'm like this, I'm pushing off, and like we're moving through it. But there is a point where it's like, you drop a cracker on the ground, you're not just gonna sit there and look at it and be like, kind of lingering on it. You're like, grab it and eat it. It's 5 seconds. Right?
Like I shoot.
That's a horrible analogy.
I shoot like through people's legs all the time, and usually they're very low to the ground.
Yeah.
Honestly, sometimes you end up just like fully cupping a butt cheek. It's what happens. But like, you just don't stay there. You know what I mean? Like,
it's just when Carter does it, he stares you in the eye.
Yeah,
So
that's a Carter thing.
That's a Carter thing for sure.
I've talked to him. I'm like, dude, come on, it's creepy.
That wasn't.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
That wasn't even in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah. That was me walking down the street.
Yeah.
No, just kidding. Carter's a good guy.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
He's great. So okay, I think that's a lot on that topic. If you guys are cool to move on, what are some common misconceptions about women in jiu-jitsu?
I feel like we need to get more specific.
Stereotypes, maybe. Like, what are some stereotypes about women in jiu-jitsu? Like, before the show, we were talking about how, my impression was always, oh, in competition, they're so friendly and like, they're like, hey, good job, you won, buddy.
Emmett's never seen a women's competition, obviously.
Yeah. Emmett, you're coming to cheer us on at our next competition. Okay, just saying.
Sounds good.
I will say like 90% of the women you come across in competition, super friendly, super awesome. Like, especially this last competition.
I'm going to put a little caveat on it, and that's local competitions.
Yes.
Okay. Local competitions where they always roll against one another, you get this camaraderie.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
You go to like ADCC.
Yeah, no.
They are possibly the most, like, I would never want to roll with any of them. I am really straight up afraid of them.
Women can be really scary and really vicious.
Mean.
And I said before we started, like, I'm almost more scared of women in street fights than men, just because women are super vicious, like hair pulling, scratching, like things that men don't even think to do in a street fight.
Well, okay, I'll tell you, in a street fight or in like a fight, you knock someone down and you're like, okay, I won. And like, I've had it in a bar fight where like, yeah, you win the fight and then you buy the guy a beer.
Yeah.
Right.
Women would be like, I am going to hold a grudge for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Hey. I thought we were breaking down barriers here.
You guys are mean.
Yeah, I mean, the whole friendly competition thing, almost every person I've come across in jiu-jitsu competitions, because I've done local competitions, have been extremely friendly. I always come back with like a bunch of Instagram handles and like new friends, and a lot of them are coming in. We have a crew coming into women's class here. They're coming to Canmore for a weekend. They're going to drop in, and we met through competition. I'll say, like, I've been in wrestling competitions where some girls were super catty and just very unhappy and didn't want to, handshake or hug it out afterwards. Right. And I'm probably one of the friendliest people you'll ever meet. I think that you guys can both attest to the fact that I'm like one of the most social people in this gym.
Yeah. It's like, my ears.
Yeah, that sounds about right. And that is why I'm the first guest on this podcast. But
and John Danaher wasn't available for some reason.
Yeah, so like, we had two people, Danielle and John Danaher.
Can't have the Danaher danger squad. You get the Danielle danger squad.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, there's like, I'm the type of person who like wants to hug it out, wants to talk, and I just really love being friends with everyone. And I think that's a big stereotype. And then going from there, my experience has been the friendliness, because I'm not a dude, it gets construed as flirting a lot. And I get, and this is not necessarily here, but I mean, in life, but also like in previous places I've trained, you'll just be friendly with someone, you want to be friends with them, and then you get hit with like the, the ick from a man, and you're like, oh, this is totally not my intention here. And I think a lot of women can, agree with that, whether in jiu-jitsu and out of jiu-jitsu.
Well, that's an interesting point. Like, I've been married for 10 years, so I don't even think about this stuff. But is dating, like, for women in the gym, is any approach from a guy kind of like, come on, man, I'm here to train?
I think that when I was 19, I dated in my gym. I'll admit that. Horrible idea. There were two people. The first ended with guy feeling so awkward he never came back. I was always extremely friendly, and I was like, hey, like we go to the same gym, super amicable. That's just how it's going to be. Second one tried to divide the classes of the week. Like we were having a divorce after like 4 dates. And I was like, no. This is our gym. I will go to whatever classes I want to. You will go to whatever classes you want to.
Right.
If you don't want to talk to me, that's fine.
So not even necessarily from a female perspective, but from a practical perspective, like just not a great idea.
No.
Dating in the gym's never a good idea.
It's never a good idea. It always ends poorly.
I don't know of like one like where I've known of couples coming in at the same time, and that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's been great. Like we have a bunch of them, but like when one's in the gym and then another one comes in and they start dating, I haven't like really known of any of those ending well. Really? And like you usually end up losing both members.
Oh wow.
Like it's just part of the thing, and it just gets awkward.
Yeah. It does. Like, and I'll say I'm the type of person who never makes anything awkward ever in my life, but most people aren't like that. And it gets really weird after a while, and that's why, you know, you can't really date in the gym. If you want to foster a relationship with someone, if there's someone you truly think that you have that romantic connection with in your gym, honestly, you need to be friends for a really long time before you can even approach that. Yeah. Like, you need to be friends with someone beforehand. Yeah. And that's really like if this person, you think that they're the honest to goodness love of your life.
Yeah. Well, and imagine like in Canmore too. There's one
gym.
Really great gym, but there's only one.
Yeah.
And so if you're willing to give up the sport that you love for the potential of dating someone a couple times, like
it's hard. And like, I've seen it over and over and over. It's crazy. I mean, part of the deal, I try to like, I don't want any of my coaches ever, but like, and that was a thing. Like, I did have a coach that's no longer here for a reason. It was like, no, you're dating within a club, and now I've lost that person, and I was like, you're not doing it. And if I hear of it again, you're out. And he's like, well, you can't control me. I was like, I'm not controlling you. I'm controlling my club.
Yeah, my business.
I don't give a shit what you do. But if you're doing this, you're not training here.
Yeah.
And he chose not training here. I was like,
wow.
I'm like, it's not a loss for me. It's actually a positive because I'm not losing I'm not getting the club's not getting a stereotype.
Yeah.
And
we get to keep building our women's program instead of women running away.
Like, it's awesome. It's just one of those things. I value the community as a whole over someone that can add value in like a teaching. I'm just like, no, of course. I'll take your classes again and I'll run it and you can go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's the way it has to go.
Going back to the stereotypes thing, what about things like I feel like the narrative is usually that women rely more on like skill and strategy, where men are, rely a bit more on like strength and aggression and weight and stuff like that.
100%.
Is that a true stereotype?
I will say that the toughest roles I've ever had are with upper belt women. Some of the best people I've ever rolled with are women with colored belts. Just because, especially given that women are usually smaller, you're a lot more forced to use technique. We talked about this when Rosa Walsh came by for a seminar, and she's tiny. I was there. It was a great seminar. Learned a lot of no-gi, like technique-based stuff, which I don't get to learn from Travis all the time because he's like a foot taller than me.
Only a foot. Come on now. Come on.
Yeah.
But on that note, Rosa Walsh came in for that. Did you come to that?
I was not here. No.
Okay. The craziest thing. She was teaching a takedown, and she's like, oh, and then you just lift them up and like hip hitch them and turn them. And then she grabs me, and I felt like a little baby.
Whoa.
He looked like a little baby.
She's like, I think she's shorter. She's about your height.
She's smaller than me.
But she's definitely smaller.
Yeah.
And she picked me up, and then everyone's like, toss him on his ass, take him out. And I felt like she definitely could. I can almost guarantee you that she definitely could. And then I talked to her afterwards, and I was like, thank you for not dumping me on my head. And she's like, well, I needed to like show respect. I was like, honestly, you probably would have got like a standing ovation if you did it. And I know that she could have. Like,
I'd be like, rewind, play,
yeah,
rewind, play.
Seriously,
Yeah.
I think that.
Can you do that again just so that I can film it?
I think that's what would have happened. And you know what? I would have been totally okay with it. I'm cool with people using that because I troll. I troll online, so why not? But I felt in that moment where my toes lifted off the mat.
Whoa.
And she's like, yeah, and then you would do this. She's talking normally. My toes are like doing a little dangly thing. I was like, huh. Damn. She could just straight up pile driver me on my neck.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Like, she's awesome. I really like Rose. She's a Rose.
She was really great. Yeah, upper belt women, some of the toughest people I've ever met because they're so technique driven. Most women mainly train with guys because jiu-jitsu gyms have this crazy ratio of just dudes in the gym versus women.
Especially high level comp women. Like if you're just training casually, they train mostly women. But high level comp women don't have that same like pick. Like there's
you need to train with guys because there aren't, like, even for me when I'm, in the gym training for a competition, the person who's at my level is Avon. Yeah. And I can't train really with other women in a competitive mindset, even at blue belt, because we don't have any other blue belt women outside of Avon and I.
Yeah, and they wouldn't be able to keep up. They wouldn't.
No.
It's just not what they're here for.
No.
But like the comp level, like you have to train with the guys.
Yeah,
it's just one of those things for now. Hopefully. I would love it. I'd
love to have a girl squad to bring into competitions. That would make my heart so happy.
Can you imagine just a girl merc squad where it's like, we're taking every podium spot, all the belts, all the medals.
This time next year, we'll make it happen.
Let's do it. We'll make a pack. Bam.
Oh no, it's on the internet forever.
Forever. But could you imagine like a dark horse hit squad of just women going on? Like,
that'd be pretty great. I'd love that.
Dude.
I would really love that.
We could.
Yeah.
We could totally make it happen.
We have enough athletes here. We've talked about the athletic culture of Canmore. And we have enough. We just got to find them, bring them in, teach them how to fold people.
Involuntary yoga.
What about, so I see it a lot in business where male ego gets in the way, like so much.
100%.
Like especially at like the CEO level, like the director, CEO, kind of like VP level in business, where it's like men they can't stop themselves from like letting ego get in the way, like grandstanding and like pushing their own ideas through because it's me, I'm important. Not everywhere, but you see it a lot. Do you see? Yet on the other hand, in my experience, working with women is a totally different ballgame, where it's like more collaborative, more like open to dialogue and like the requirements of everyone and coming together and not like needing to have credit for things and things like that. In that sense, generally speaking, I far prefer women in the work environment. Do you see that in jiu-jitsu too?
Oh, totally.
Oh, really?
Yeah. You look at some guys in the gym and their egos get so in the way of just being able to train productively. I mean, you guys have talked on this podcast about guys coming into the gym, sending like Avon to go beat them up. But, can you imagine what's going through some of these guys' heads when they're like, they have the 17-year-old girl who's like 130 pounds wet, like jump on their back, choke them out, refusing to tap, going to sleep, which hasn't happened yet that I know of.
Not yet.
I'm sure it's been close.
I'm sure. I've seen some veins popping in a dude's head. I'm just like, you're going to go out.
The amount
will take you out.
Yeah. The amount of humility it takes to just accept that there are people who are better at this sport than you, and some of them are women who are smaller than you, especially as a newer guy coming into the sport. And this isn't to say it's only newer guys. There's definitely guys who are more experienced that I've rolled with that I can't. There's certain upper belt guys that I'll refuse to roll with because of the way that they roll. But
like gender dynamics aside, or like, the intersectional part aside, like in a woman's journey, is ego less of a factor?
I think so. I think that there's a little bit less to overcome just because as a woman, I find that I was raised with a lot more humility and to be a lot more humble. And maybe it's cultural, maybe it's just the way my parents raised me, but I have a really hard time taking credit for things. I have a really hard time, talking about my achievements. I have a really hard time like tooting my own horn. I am not, and I've been trying really hard to become the type of person who can say nice things about myself. But I find that women are a heck of a lot more self-critical than guys are. Guys will come into the gym, they'll train, and they'll just think about how awesome the submissions that they did on these people were today.
But ego gets in the way.
It does.
Right? Where it's like, I'm awesome. I can't take I can't take that this lower belt is better or whatever.
When you roll and you just refuse to tap, or when you roll and like I've rolled with guys who have ego and they don't want to let me submit them, but they also can't escape from the submission attempt. And I'm just sitting there.
You're talking about me, right?
It's always me.
It's always about me. I know.
Talking about ego.
Oops. But like,
this is called the Emmett Show, isn't it?
The Emmett and Others Show.
Yeah. The Emmett and Blurred Shapes Show.
I'll just blur myself in post editing. Sorry, Danielle, you're getting the blur effect here.
Okay, cool.
Like I'll just be sitting in the same position, holding a submission attempt, going for different submissions that are, chained from the same sort of family. But they'll kind of just be in the same position, not escaping and not really being able to do anything. And we'll just be there for like 4 minutes in a round. And it goes the other way too, where like they can't land a submission on me. And I'm like making escape attempts, but we just can't keep ending up in the same position, but nothing can be finished. I really love rolling with people like Jonah, who you can get a really good flow. You get into like the submission setup, but then you move on to the next thing. It's it's very give and take. I find the ego gets in the way of being able to roll in that give and take. And rolling isn't about hunting submissions. When you roll, there is no winning or losing.
Right. So it's a blockage to creativity in a sense, because it's like you're not afraid to throw something out there or try something different, or because winning and losing isn't the point.
What's the point of a roll if you're going to sit in the same position for the entire round?
Those are some of the worst. Like when you just sit there in half guard, and you're like, you can't sweep them, you can't move them off their base because they're just planted, but they're also not moving, and you're like, what the hell are we even doing? Like this doesn't
I'm
help.
trying to change, okay, dude?
It's funny you say that, because I am really great at holding half guard, and I'm trying to work on my game of coming up to dogfight, sweeping people off, but you get people who kind of just sit there, but they can't get out of your half guard either. And it's like, we're sitting in this round, and a lot of times I'll just let go and let people kind of like pass or continue to work. And then it helps me because I get to practice my escapes from side or from mount or wherever they choose to go.
I think that's the best way to go about it. And like, when I'm in a competition, I loathe inactivity. I loathe stalling. I will give someone mount. I will give someone side mount. I will give someone something just so that we can continue. When I'm on the mats, I'm the guy that wants to provide entertainment to anyone watching. So these people that I know that we're kind of diverging off of this, but any training partner that's just like, I'm going to sit here and do nothing, you're not helping anyone. You're not helping yourself. Unless your goal is to, I need to learn how to focus my base. Right? And achieve that. But even then, you're not really helping yourself because you're not allowing yourself to get slightly off balance. You're just huddled up and doing that. You're like, no, we're here to learn how to, one, play on the mats and understand through movement how to get better.
Yeah.
And it's crazy. Like, I know that, and then there's some people, and coming back to like men and women kind of thing, when a guy gets like full mount or something, they'll just sit there and be like, I'm heavier, I'm stronger, and
Then they'll take an Americana and they'll rip it on you, and it's like, why did we even do this?
Yeah,
I
it's
already knew you could do an Americana on me.
Yeah, and like we have enough teenagers in the club, like teenage girls, and you can't do that. You have to be able to understand to play, and playing actually comes back down. It goes all the way. Men with men, men with women, women with women. Some of the like most vicious things I've ever seen is women that have come into the club that don't know any other way to roll.
Oh.
And they go absolutely like crazy.
Because they're used to rolling with only men?
Hard
to say.
I'm not too sure, but possibly. But it could be like that survival thing, right? Where they're like, I need to go as hard as possible because maybe I have rolled with only men.
Yeah.
And that's how I survive. And we had someone come in and Georgie.
Yeah.
They did that with her, and like Georgie was skilled enough to like be like, no, I'm just gonna, and she did like kind of a holding thing, but it was a holding to keep herself safe.
Wow. I definitely have done that before. And I think that goes into the other way too, is like, I have enough skill that if someone that I've chosen to roll with is doing things that are like legitimately scary, I have enough strength and skill to escape and just hold them in a position until the end of the round. I also have enough humility to say, hey, we're not going to finish this round. I don't know if I've done that in a while, but I've definitely said to people, like, you know what? I'm done. It's like, I don't want to roll with you anymore, and this is why. And people need to know. People need to hear it.
I actually heard a great thing is saying or no is a complete sentence. I think it was like Rob Bernanke or someone. Yeah. I don't want to give that guy any credit. He gets enough credit, honestly. But seriously, if it was him, awesome. And no is a complete sentence. You can just say no. You can stop a roll right then and there.
You don't need to know why. You don't need to explain yourself. You can just say, we're done rolling. And that's that. And I think that goes into training as a woman as well, is feeling that strength to just say, no, we're done. Or no, I don't want to.
Yeah.
I think that's got to be really hard.
It is really
when
hard.
you're just starting to. Being like, when someone comes up to approach you to roll and just being able to say no, you need to be able to understand that. Especially here at Dark Horse, if anyone gets like butt hurt because, oh, she didn't want to roll with me, well, check yourself. Yeah, that's on you. That's not on. Yeah, that's not on her. She's keeping herself safe. She might. It doesn't matter.
If that happens to any of the girls, I will tell whoever that is off.
Oh man,
I
will come in with like a spinning heel hook. I'm like, okay, get out of here. I don't care. Like, and there's certain people where I've rolled like, look, if you want to have a fun roll, slow down. Don't use all your strength.
Yeah,
but I'm bigger and I'm generally more skilled than most of the people that come in here. Some women don't have that option.
Yeah,
but saying no is always an option. It should always be an option.
Yeah, and in women's class, we make that very clear of, you can always tap, you can always say no. Yeah. And, no, they're not rolling. I don't think anyone in women's class is rolling yet, outside of the ones who come into the evening classes on occasion. Hopefully we'll get there at some point, maybe some positional sparring first. But like, every time we teach a submission, we make it very clear. You verbalize to your partner or you tap your partner. You make it very clear when you're done. And, especially when you're teaching women this skill, it's important to show them that they also have the power to not, get hurt. And I think that kind of reminds me as well of just being able to teach women to not be gentle in jiu-jitsu. And jiu-jitsu is the gentle art. Yeah. Gentle. Not with this guy.
Yeah. No, I'm mean. I'll rip your ankle out.
Yeah, you would.
I say that full knowing that I'm hobbling around with a busted ass ankle right now.
Yep. It looks horrible.
Yeah, it is what it is.
I think what's interesting about that topic to me is, and you talk about how I think you guys both mentioned that some of the best jiu-jitsu practitioners that you've seen are high level females.
Yeah.
And like it seems to me like once you remove ego from it, you even have that kind of dynamic of like always having to, or most often having to fight against people who are physically stronger and having to use technique. Like it must get to a point where women are actually, their learning accelerates much more rapidly than most men. Yeah.
I think it has to. I think it has to.
You don't really have a choice as a woman.
Yeah.
But that's
because as a man, you can just count on. Sorry, I'm talking over you.
Yeah, no, you're good. Yeah, you're talking over women on an episode about women.
I'll fire him. I'll fire him from the Emmett and Friends show.
Yeah, but it's like when men are basically hobbling themselves by just being like, I'm gonna sit on top of you, and like when you don't have that option, you have to accelerate your learning.
Exactly. Yeah, you don't really have a choice.
Yeah.
I mean, especially as a woman in jiu-jitsu, when you get put in a situation, you have to fight your way out of it.
Yeah.
And it's being smaller. If you're rolling with one of those guys who has an ego, who just will sit on top of you, you're going to train until you can find a way to get that guy who's using all of his strength off of you. Mm-hmm. It's just the way you have to do it. And then when you can figure out the technique to get a guy has 100 pounds on you off of you, who else are you, you've developed that skill, and now you can do that with anyone pretty much.
Heel hook.
Yeah.
Heel hooks.
Heel hooks.
Week 2 in women's class, we taught knee bars. So it's very dark horse.
It is the dark horse way.
It is the dark horse way. You like feet over here.
I like to break feet over here.
Yeah. He's like the Tarantino of jiu-jitsu coaches.
But yeah, one of the other things that I say to a lot of women in women's class, especially when it comes to teaching submissions, is you don't have to be scared of, using more strength. You don't have to be scared and timid when it comes to being in a position. Even like holding closed guard, I'm like, hold it tight.
Totally.
Keep those positions. Use your strength. Don't be passive. Mm-hmm. I find that with a lot of the women who come in when you're teaching things, especially like arm bars, you find they're going extremely slowly. They're very careful. They don't want to hurt their training partners, which is an awesome quality. Mm-hmm. But it's learning where your strength can get to before you even get to where you could possibly hurt someone.
Like, Travis, do you see, and maybe this is too much of a generalization, which we want to stay away from, but do you find that maybe in that sense, women tend to be more detail oriented?
Sometimes they're, for myself, when I'm teaching, like when I have to like go over to like 2 women rolling,
I
almost change the language a little bit. Everyone learns it a little bit differently, but rather than being like, okay, now grab the arm and bridge through, you have to be like, okay, now you're going to grab here, and you show them exactly where it is.
Yeah.
And then you're like, and now take that bone right on your hip and drive it into their elbow. Rather than saying bridge, drive hip into elbow. And then you'll see a change, usually. And like, this is my language, like where I have to, if I'm teaching anyone anything, I'm always changing my language, because the first thing I start to realize with people is everyone
learns differently.
Everyone learns differently, but everyone has a different language. And that is something that I absolutely love. I love language, and I love the way that different people use it. Like I read a lot of poetry. I read a lot of like literature in that sense. It's all different. It's always like different perspectives. So I integrate that. Like I've talked, we shit on him on here, but Carter has a different language than myself. Like he's very mechanical, levers and mechanical advantage here. When I come over and like I talk to Danielle or Avon, it's like I have to change it up. I'm like, okay,
you're just giggling the whole time.
Yeah, I'm like,
that's how we communicate.
This I heel hook one another when someone's in, but I'm like, okay, so now you're gonna grab here and here, and like they instantly and like one of the biggest things, and I'm going off on another rant, but one of the biggest things that I find, and I mean it sounds terrible, but a lot of the women that I teach don't know left and right when I say it. Left and right.
Avon does this all the time. She's
Okay.
going to listen to this
You
episode.
say Avon, but so many women do this. Like, there's like, they do this and then they see so I have completely dropped that from my lingo when I'm teaching.
Interesting.
Even
I do the same thing, actually. Like, I'll say, okay, move your bum out away from this, like, depending on what we're doing. Like, if we're teaching shrimping, like, I'll say, like, bridge, like, come up onto your shoulders, on your toes, and then you're going to push your butt out to one side. Doesn't matter which side, you're just going to do it. But, like, that's the kind of, like, I'll teach anchor points, like, your toes stay in the same place, your shoulder stays in the same place, you're only moving your bum. And, like, that's the way that you kind of have to do it.
And I've seen this at, like, you see this on Instagram videos, like, at the highest level of, like, black belt, where
they just drop their grips
the coach is like, grab with your left hand, and this black belt woman's like, grabs and then submits her.
Yeah.
She still gets a submission, but I'm like, it's universal. So I sent that video to Avon. I was like,
I've sent the exact same video to Avon.
And I'm like, but I've sent like probably about 15 videos of this same phenomenon happening. I'm like,
interesting.
And I don't know what it is, but I've completely just taken that out when I'm teaching anyone. I'm just like, it's not, even if they do know, and most of them do, but like, even if you do, I'm just going to take it right out. Why waste my energy? Why waste their time?
Yeah.
Just say, direct them this way. And then as soon as you're like, just grab that hand over, this hand here, and then bridge that hip bone right in.
Right.
It's like, bam. And they get it right away. And it's like, okay, that's all you have to do. And then Rose.
Yeah.
When she was, I think she was with you, and she was like very like timid. I was like, no, Danielle can handle it.
Yeah.
Bridge a little bit harder, but like go slow, but bridge harder. Boom. Getting it.
Yeah.
But you can't be like, okay, well, now you're just going to put a little bit more pressure on. That just doesn't work.
When it clicks, it clicks.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I like to teach. I try to teach it, if you're taking like top mount, or if you're in closed guard and you're putting your hands on someone's hips or their belly to like, brace and posture up. Not being like timid and tentative about your movements and the way that you're, holding yourself, and you're actually using strength, because it doesn't benefit anyone if, you're not going to sit there and use full strength to resist against a technique when you're drilling it. But it's not going to benefit anyone if you're not actually being like, you're not a good training partner if you're not actually going to, act like the person that you're trying to do the technique on. And so it's that balance.
So with that in mind, that sort of like necessity to be a little more like assertive.
Yeah.
One of we had, I forget what episode it was, maybe last episode it might've been, where we were talking about, the benefits of jiu-jitsu in like regular life.
Yep.
As a female, do you find that knowing jiu-jitsu and practicing jiu-jitsu and kind of like needing to have that assertiveness in the gym has translated to how you interact with people outside the gym?
100%. I think that, and this I'll say is combat sports in general, because ever since I started wrestling, like I was this awkward, shy, weird kid. I still am, let's be real. But like, I got bullied as a kid. I got bullied as a teenager. And I mean, I still got bullied past when I started wrestling, but I found my people, I found my passion, and it was an outlet, and it gave me confidence. Is what it gave me. And it gave me that feeling of, okay, well, people can say things to me. But they're sure as heck not gonna, try to fight me. And that's all I needed is my physical safety at that point. But I find even now, like I took a 4-year break from jiu-jitsu when maybe like 6 months after the pandemic started. I trained for a bit, and then I stopped because I was living with my family and they didn't want me training for a little bit, just because they didn't want me bringing COVID into the house. This was totally like fair, early 2020. But I stopped training for about 4 years because I also moved away from Toronto. I was in Jasper where there's no gym. I came down to Canmore, and I was a little bit scared to come back. And like honestly, I was like with someone who was actively discouraging me from training and being that confident person that, I know I am in the gym. I was training for maybe 2.5 years-ish before I stopped. And I had this crazy confidence. And I totally lost it when I stopped training.
So you had a person in your life who was like, I don't think that's for you.
Yeah, my previous long-term partner, when I mentioned that I wanted to maybe come back to jiu-jitsu, this was maybe like 6 months before we parted ways. They straight up said to me, like, I actually don't want to be with someone who fights. And me being, someone who had no confidence because I wasn't training jiu-jitsu, I was insecure. I had, all these things happening. And
what was their reasoning for that? It's violence or whatever?
Violence. They didn't think it was ladylike, and it was just not. It was a super it was a really weird thing. It was super not progressive.
Ladylike? Who uses the term ladylike anymore?
Well, I didn't say ladylike. It's just it's just the vibe they were giving. But it was just not something that they wanted to see in a partner.
Wow.
And for me, coming here gives me so much confidence. And I've even heard it from people who don't do jiu-jitsu in my life. They've seen the spark come back to me since I've come back to the gym. Nice. And they've seen all this. Thank you. They've seen all of this confidence in me and just my personality coming back out since I came back to the gym, however many months ago it was.
Even in from first class.
Yeah.
Till now, it's been a crazy transition. Mm-hmm. I always have this weird thing. I remember people. I remember how they look when they first started. I remember all this stuff. My brain just does not stop.
You remember that knee cut pass that really confused you?
Yeah.
Because Georgie lied to you and told you that I had a month of experience.
No, she was like, yeah, Danielle, this girl Danielle's gonna come back and she hasn't trained, but she trained 2 months before. I was like, oh, okay. And then we're rolling and she throws up this knee cut pass Fiona Davies style. And I was like, bullshit. Bullshit. I went to Georgie. I was like, that's some bullshit. You just lied to me. You lied directly to my face because she has more experience in that. And then I talked to you afterwards. I was like, so how long have you been trained? And you were like, oh, well, I haven't trained for a few years, but I had trained probably, I think you said 2.5.
I had 3 stripes on my white belt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, that makes sense then. Because that knee, and we talked about it, I was like, that knee cut pass was no bullshit. That was a straight up, you've trained this. And I was I was confused. I was like, bullshit. No.
I did it to Carter too.
Yeah. But no person that has ever trained a month knee cuts like that.
Yeah.
I was like, nope, bullshit. And it was just an instant thing. And then there's a little, I know that you got a little bit of flack for jumping into the blue belt too.
I did get a bit of flack for jumping into the blue belt.
I just kind of went, you know what? Roll with her. Go ahead. She'll kick your ass. She's good. She deserves a blue belt.
That was so. I'm going to cut you off just for 1 second. That was actually something I wanted to ask you in a general sense was, do you get flack? But that sounds like a specific example.
Oh, I totally got flack.
Not just for blue belt, but for being a female.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. So you got flack for jumping into the blue belt.
So, well, our blue belt. I make you know everything 100%. Yeah. I make you legit in it. And the deal that I made with you was come in every time that you can. You train this. We go through it. Any questions, ask me. Watch the videos, take notes. And you did.
I came in my gi every day for 3 weeks to make sure I knew the curriculum.
You went hard. And I was like, okay.
I was here I think 5 days a week.
And that was the thing. I was like, she's showing the commitment. She's doing the moves. Mm-hmm. It might not be as clean as I usually want it, but guess what? She has all these skills. She has this knowledge. Yeah. And
I was already sandbagging.
Yeah, but I went to bat and I was like, no, roll with her. She'll whoop your ass. And then right from there, everything just stopped because I saw a roll and I was like, she took you out.
So what? There was one person who was like, "What's going on here?"
There was two people that were like,
really?
they're
Actually, never even knew about the second person.
yeah, they're questioning it. I was like, come in, roll. Let's see how it goes.
Interesting.
And then right from there, it was like, okay. And like, I didn't hear a damn thing right after that. And anything that you brought to me, I went and dealt with personally.
Oh, I know you did.
Yeah, I was like, that shit isn't happening in my club. And I'm not like an authoritarian, like, it's my way or the highway.
God, no.
Yeah, I'm like almost the exact opposite of that. But I don't take this little bullshit behind the back.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. I'm like, either say it to her face with meaning and have a meaningful discussion.
Yeah.
Or shut the fuck up.
But it's also questioning you.
Oh, yeah.
It's like saying, well, he's just trying to fast track this person.
Yeah. And I get that with other guys too. I get that with some of the guys that have gotten a blue belt under me. I'm like, yeah, that's fine. But here's what I also take into consideration. I take into consideration, like, your opinion, like Jason, like anyone else that's a little bit closer to that. I've been so far removed from like white to blue belt that I try to stay there, but I'm so far removed that I'm like, okay, well, I'll take someone that's recently a blue or more recently a blue.
You mean like vouching for someone or something like that?
So you asked Emmett, and he said that I could kick his ass. And
Emmett was like, no, I'm king shit of the shit file.
Yeah.
Don't you know this is Dark Horse Emmett martial arts?
Yeah. I was like, I'll annihilate her. Yeah. No.
I know you've never said that.
No, I've never said that about anybody, I don't think. Maybe once.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, that's so interesting, hey? That's another, like, ego just coming back, where it's like, why did she get this when I had to do whatever? It's like, who cares, man? We're not talking about you.
And I mean, the reality is that I did the work. I just didn't do it here for a lot of that time. I was training here for like 3 months before you said, hey, Danielle, here's a stripe. You really need your blue belt. And I was like, okay, I guess. Like, I didn't think I was ready. You had to tell me to,
but also
put in the work.
One's privy to what you're working on, or how hard you're working on it, or how many days a week you're here, or how good you are at it. Like,
the crazy thing is like, that's like in my notes and stuff. I'm like, okay, they're putting in the work. They're doing what I want. They're showing that they want it more than like, oh yeah, I then they think that they deserve it, right? And
right.
Does that make sense?
Oh,
like
100%.
I'm there, and I'm like, she wants it. She wants to go after it, and I think Avon was a pushing factor too.
Yeah.
And
doing it together was definitely. It was a massive help. I think that, going back to training with women, having another woman to do it with, and I'm going to refer to Avon as a woman because she is, she's 17, but like, she's an adult.
Also super mean.
Also super mean. Not to me, to you guys. Yeah. But like, having another woman to train with, to do the test with, to go through that with, was huge. Like, if I had to go through that test with just the 5 other guys who were doing it, I don't know that I would have had the same motivation. I don't know what I would have had the same drive. Just because, like, that not everyone believed in me. Not everyone knew me. And that's, I was only training here for a few months, so not everyone really knew who I was before going for the test. That's some added
pressure, hey? Being like, what are other people thinking about this or whatever? And
yeah.
I remember having a talk. I was like, who gives a shit?
Yeah.
Who cares what they're saying? And you're like, and it sparked. You're like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
Like you had that little bit of, they're saying this. I'm like, who gives a shit? And then you're like, oh yeah, this is my journey. And then you just continue to push through and show that you're a badass woman doing stuff that
I don't even need the puke bucket.
I know. Poor puke bucket.
That thing of not asking in a way that you deserve it, but showing that you want it. Funny story about my journey is that, man,
sorry, are you a woman who's like rolling through barriers?
Sometimes.
I'm fully kidding.
Sometimes. So I had 3 stripes This is still when Danny was here, and I was like, man, I've had 3 stripes for so long. And like, I know we're coming up to a blue belt test. Like, what is going on? And like, I was really cognizant of not being like, hey man, I think maybe I'm ready for my, but one day I pulled Travis aside and I was like, hey man, I'm just kind of like wondering, like, what do I need to do to get my 4th stripe? And Travis was like, oh, I thought I gave that to you a long time ago.
You would.
He was like, I thought it was just like pushed up against another stripe there or something. Oh, I'll give that to you today. I was like, oh, okay, sweet.
I remember that because your belt looked like it had one distinct one, another one, and then like the third one looked like a 3, potentially a 4th. So I was like, okay, well, it's 4 stripes.
So you taped his belt crooked, is what you're saying, to the point where you couldn't even figure out how many stripes there were.
I think it did get mashed up over time.
I think it was just this, like this little bead. It like looked like thread at the end. It was this little bead of like tape, and I was like, oh, I'm sure I did, but like that's one thing I don't actually track. I don't like go
right
how many days someone's been at a level. I go,
oh sure, yeah,
but I guess that's a good way to like understand it, but I'm also like, no, if they're at that level, I'm going to promote them to that level.
Right.
Some people progress faster than others, especially when you see like judokas come into jiu-jitsu. They progress so fast because they have the base.
Or they quit because they're like, this isn't my thing.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen that.
But that's the flip side too of like, I don't know who was asking, and I don't care about that, but like, they were like, it took them a super long time because they weren't putting in the work or something like that. I'm not making any judgment against anybody, but like, if you're not putting in the work and you're feeling frustrated, and then you see someone else like progressing quickly, I can see how that would be.
You know, I get some new people asking me for advice sometimes, and they'll ask me things like, how should I train? How do you train? How do you kind of like what's your schedule like? And I'll tell people I come in here minimum 3 times a week unless I'm injured or sick. And even when I'm injured, I'll come in and I'll just kind of hang out because
that's awesome.
I enjoy being here. But I honestly tell people that if you're coming in once a week, like you're not really going to see the progress the way you want to.
Yeah.
You need to come in at least twice a week to see progress.
Yeah.
3 times a week if you really want to see that progress.
Yeah.
I remember for me, for the longest time, I only trained twice a week when I first started training.
Yeah.
And that was maybe for about a year. And then I started training 3 to 4 times a week. The summer before I had my soft quit of jiu-jitsu before coming back, I trained 7 days a week.
Oh my God.
Like sometimes twice a day. Yeah. I took a summer like working contracts and I'd work like a week at a time and take a lot more time off.
Yeah.
But I just trained jiu-jitsu like every single day. And that was, just before I think my 3rd stripe.
Yeah.
But I was like really driven, really wanting to succeed, really wanting to improve. I was gearing up for my first competition that didn't end up happening because of the pandemic. And then I got to do my first competition under Travis, which was really awesome. And you know what? Turned out to be extremely meaningful. So, and then that's when I got my 4th stripe.
Yep.
Right after that. And Travis looked at my belt and said, "You really, this looks like it should have gone here a long time ago." Oh, wow. He's like, "What is going on with this belt? Why is it so dirty?"
Yeah, it was like 4 white stripes that were like almost black. I was like, what the hell?
It was.
Here's a fresh, nice, clean white one to make it look absolutely.
Well, you know what? I have my white belt at home. It's like sitting with like, my medals and whatnot. And I look at it and I'm like, oh my God, these 3 stripes are so dark. And then I have the one from Travis. And it's like the funniest thing you'll ever see. But yeah, it's the progress comes when you put in the work. Yeah. And even for me now, like I do my best to come in here as often as I can.
Yeah.
I'm in here every Saturday for sure because I coach women's class. I stay for open mat. Even if I'm not actively rolling as much due to an injury, I'll be here and I'll be training with Avon. I'll be, training just in general or trying to like watch people roll, learn from them, that kind of thing. And then I do my best to come in 2-3 times a week otherwise.
Man, I miss open mats. I can't go in the winter because I work at a ski resort. But like summertime, Open mat is the best. Bit of a non sequitur, but another question I wanted to ask is, what do you think about female representation in sort of like the jiu-jitsu celebrity world? Like, are there females that you look up to, or you think that other female jiu-jitsu athletes look up to? There's so many kind of like famous guys out there.
Yeah, I think there's tons of awesome female jiu-jitsu practitioners that are out there that you can use as role models. I think of like Fionn Davies and Rosa Walsh and, like I was super looking forward to watching Fionn and Adele Fornerino go at it at FPI tomorrow, but that's not happening, unfortunately. I'm extremely sad about it. But I love them. I love watching women compete. I love watching high-level jiu-jitsu women and watching I love watching them teach their instructionals, that kind of thing. I think the accessibility of jiu-jitsu makes it so easy to find female role models, because the ones who have made it through to black belt, the ones who teach, they're made of something else. Like, they are incredible people to learn from, because those women persevered through all of the ego that they came across, all of the hate, all of the people who did not think that they were good enough, or all the people who didn't think that they could, beat the hell out of them. It's
You know what? We're actually going to shout out someone, and that's Jits and Eats.
Oh, absolutely.
So now it's under 2 new people, but man, that is like an all-female camp that brings in like high level. That's how I met Rosa. Oh, okay. Like Rosa Walsh. They brought her in. She was here for a little bit, but like Jits and Eats, they're amazing. Go follow them on Instagram. Annette and Linda run it now. And yeah, it's just phenomenal to see the amount of talent that comes in. Their last one they had, I think it was Nikki teach, or maybe, I know that Nikki is taught at it. So Nikki is one of those competitors that's just incredible. She's competed under us. She competes all around the province, ADCC. Incredible. She just got her brown belt, like crazy good. And then Agnes was the one that taught at the last one, and great. Just always great learning from them. And awesome. So yeah, Jits and Eats, if we're looking at women to look up to, anyone that's there, like, and Ned is a beauty of a human being.
Amazing human.
And Linda,
I know she's listening.
And Linda's another beauty of a human being.
Linda's also
she
great.
stopped by last week.
No, she was awesome. We had a really great role. I think it was a week and a half, 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, maybe, but
time isn't real.
yeah, true. But she's awesome too. So go give them like and subscribe on Instagram. They have a few camps coming up, and they're all around Alberta, looking at BC. They'll be down here in Dark Horse here in the future, but yeah, I can't shout them out enough. They're amazing. And awesome.
I know Aven and I are looking at some of their camps for the summer, so
100%.
Yeah.
I can't recommend going out to those because it's all females. So when do you get that opportunity?
You almost never get that kind of opportunity. Every time there's an all-female jiu-jitsu event, I'm like, I really want to do this. This is going to be awesome. And you know what? Sometimes it feels weird and intimidating to go to them because you're so often training with guys. But I remember my very first women's only class back in Toronto, and we had maybe like 20 women show up just from different gyms around the area because no one really had an established women's only program. And like, it felt so good to train with just a bunch of women. It was awesome. And it's such a safe space. I was able to get some friends into it and get people to train, even if it was just once or twice, getting some confidence in there.
If you could use one word to describe that, what would it be?
I'm going to go with wholesome. It just makes your heart feel happy.
Nice.
Especially when you see women who are doing jiu-jitsu and they're total badasses.
Yeah.
And you can't help but feel this massive sense of pride as a woman, you know? Like, I look at a mat full of women rolling and training and just doing awesome jiu-jitsu stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, that is freaking awesome.
That's really cool.
That is amazing. And that makes me so happy.
Nice. It's 10:30. I don't know how you guys are feeling. I'm about ready to wrap things up. Any final thoughts from you, Danielle, today?
If you're a woman looking to try jiu-jitsu, do it. If you're in Canmore, come to me and I'll make sure you get started and have a really good base under you. I think that everyone should do it, even if it's just once or twice, just to get the feel of it, learn the sport, understand, feel confident. But honestly, it's one of the biggest confidence boosters out there. And I think that as a woman, you should really learn this stuff. And as a dude, you should honestly learn to train with women. And, what was the post that I sent you? It was like how to not be an asshole when training with women.
Whoa. I sent that to you.
No, I sent it to you. And then you asked me to be on this podcast.
I don't know.
See the male ego getting in the way.
No, that's the male thinking of.
You sent me a different post. I sent you a very specific one.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, just learning to train with your female partners, making that safe space for them in the gym. Mm-hmm. And if you see someone, talking shit or, hitting on a woman who's clearly uncomfortable in your gym, say something.
Yeah. Anywhere
in general.
In a bar, you see that too often.
Jiu-jitsu, go do it.
But like anywhere, if you see something happening that's just looks uncomfortable, don't be like, I'm gonna whip out my phone. No, go do something. Don't be an asshole
about it.
Like we have on the whiteboard, don't be a jerk. Yeah. That's like one of the biggest rules.
Number one rule.
Yeah, like just be a decent human being. How hard is that?
Yeah,
like, come on.
Exactly.
And, one of the things that Travis and I were talking about, and we talked a little bit about it before the show, was, I feel like we're in this kind of divisive time in our culture right now. And, you mentioned a safe space, and I feel like jiu-jitsu offers us a little bit of a sanctuary, where we can leave division at the door, we can leave our differences at the door, we can leave our politics, any arguments about gender or just differences, you leave them at the door, and we have this amazing shared space where we're all following the same journey in our own ways. And I think that is something that we need to celebrate more and really have really understand that we have this unique opportunity to come together, and I'm personally thankful that we have that in jiu-jitsu.
Me too.
Yeah.
I'm not.
No.
Talk about divisive.
Yeah, so divisive, Travis.
I'm gonna use a soundbite.
I'm not. Yeah.
No, it's actually a truly amazing thing that you can have. As soon as you walk through that door, it stops there. And if it doesn't, guess what? You're gonna have to talk to me, and I'm usually pretty friendly, pretty like outgoing. When something like that goes down, I'm like, I can be a straight up like asshole face comes on. I'm like, hey, that shit ain't cool. So
yeah,
it's an amazing space that you should keep.
Yeah,
nice, inclusive, friendly, and you should be able to train with a lot of people.
Yeah,
it's a safe space.
It's a martial arts gym. If you're mean to someone, they're gonna beat you up.
Yeah,
someone,
or they're gonna find someone to beat you up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, you should keep it a safe space.
Yeah.
I think, and that's the beauty of jiu-jitsu, that you can do that. I think so.
Well, Danielle, thanks for being on the show today.
Thanks for having me.
Definitely our pleasure.
Yeah. Thank you for having me on the show today, Emmett.
What's your name again?
Friend.
Oh yeah, friend. Right. And thanks everyone for listening. And see you next time.
Yeah, and make sure to like and subscribe. Every subscription helps. It gets our show put out there a little bit more. And yeah, if you're ever in Canmore, Canmore or Banff, stop by Dark Horse Martial Arts. We welcome everyone here. And
free women's classes every Saturday. So if you're dropping through the Bow Valley, feel free to come through no matter what your experience level is. If you happen to be a female black belt coming through Canmore or Banff and want to drop in, I'll let you guest teach. Yeah. Come in and teach me something.
Shoot me a message, because I'll be like, hey, Danielle, you're not teaching this class?
That's fine with me. Yeah, that's totally fine.
And as long as you teach me something too, because I want to learn everything. Yeah. And other than that, we'll catch you on the next one. Episode 6. Don't know what we're doing. Well, we do know what we're doing. I don't know what we're doing. He knows what we're doing. And from there, we'll catch you on the flip side.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.